The stage was set, not just for a game, but for a coronation. The WNBA All-Star Game 2025. It was the culmination of a whirlwind season, a moment designed to crystallize a paradigm shift. The air in the arena was thick with an anticipation that felt different, heavier than mere sports excitement. It was the palpable feeling of a cultural tectonic plate in motion. This wasn't just a sellout crowd. It was a pilgrimage. A sea of number 22 jerseys worn by young girls, by seasoned basketball fans, by people who had never watched a WNBA game before this year. The digital world mirrored the physical one. Social media engagement rates were up over 500% from the previous year. The pre-game show spoke in tones of awe. Analysts, usually reserved, struggled to find superlatives that hadn't already been exhausted. ESPN, sensing the historic gravity, had rolled out a production worthy of a Super Bowl. New high-value sponsors had bought ad time specifically for this broadcast, eager to attach their brands to the phenomenon. They weren't just advertising during a basketball game. They were buying a piece of history. The league itself had leaned into the narrative with unprecedented fervor. This was their moment. They had the biggest name in women's sports, Caitlin Clark, the rookie who wasn't just breaking records, but was fundamentally rewiring the league's economic and cultural DNA. This game was meant to be the crescendo, the league-wide celebration of a future that had finally undeniably arrived. It was the perfect story. And then, in a move of such staggering counterintuition, it felt like a deliberate act of sabotage. The story was murdered. The announcement, when it came, was not delivered with the gravity it deserved. It was a quiet, sterile statement slipped into the news cycle like a clerical correction. No Caitlin Clark, not a single minute on the floor. In the media room, a wave of confusion rippled through the reporters. On the broadcast, a team of seasoned professionals was left visibly scrambling, trying to fill a sudden gaping hole where their entire narrative was supposed to be. The result was immediate, catastrophic, and most importantly, measurable. A 36% freefall in viewership, a collapse from a record 344 million viewers the previous year to a deeply disappointing 219 million. The WNBA had built an engine, strapped it to a rocket, paraded it before the world, and then, at the moment of ignition, doused it with water. The official excuse was precautionary rest. An explanation so flimsy, so transparently corporate. It was an insult to the intelligence of every fan who had invested their time, money, and emotion. Rest? For a 22-year-old athlete in peak physical condition, a generational talent known for her durability, an athlete who has played fewer total games than most veterans log in a single season. This wasn't the logic of sports science. It was the hollow language of damage control, a phrase designed to neutralize inquiry. But it failed, because this wasn't a blunder. It was a statement. A shot fired across the bow not of a player, but of a phenomenon. This wasn't protection. This was the first overt act in a covert campaign of containment. To understand the events that followed, one must first understand the psychology of a system confronting a force it cannot control. Institutions, like empires, fear chaos, but they fear dependence even more. Caitlin Clark represents both. She is a chaotic, unpredictable force of market growth, and the league is becoming dangerously dependent on her presence. Imagine the boardroom meetings, the hushed conversations among owners and league executives. The spreadsheets would show unprecedented revenue, but the subtext would be one of terror. The fear of one player becoming bigger than the shield. The fear of a future where broadcast partners and sponsors make demands centered on a single individual, not the collective. This is the lens through which the all-star benching must be viewed. It was not a decision made for the health of a player, but for the health of the established power structure. It was a controlled detonation, a signal test. The league, in its own cold calculus, was gathering data. What happens if we pull the plug? How loud does the room get? How much of this Clark effect is real? And how much is media hype? They got their answer in the form of a 36% ratings collapse. But to them, that loss may have been a worthwhile price to pay for a crucial piece of information. Yes, the dependence is real. Now, how do we manage it? The strategy that emerged is one of containment. A multi-front, subtle war designed to diminish Clark's perceived value and reassert the league's central authority. It's a campaign fought not with open hostility, but with scheduling changes, broadcast decisions, media narratives, and a suffocating, league-wide message of team-first collectivism that aims to dilute the power of the individual. They didn't want to kill their golden goose. They wanted to put a leash on it. The most glaring front in this campaign is financial. The disparity between Caitlin Clark's market value and her league-mandated compensation is not just a gap. It is a canyon, a testament to a broken economic model. It begins with the endorsements. Nike, a global arbiter of cultural capital, signed Clark to an 8-year deal worth a reported $28 million. That is $3.5 million a year. This wasn't a gamble. It was a coronation. Brands like Nike are market indicators. Their investments are based on exhaustive data and projections. They are confirming what everyone can see, that Clark is a generational marketing force, capable of moving millions of units and shaping consumer behavior on a global scale. Her deal is comparable to those signed by top male athletes, a clear signal that in the open market of cultural relevance, she is in the highest echelon. Now, hold that $3.5 million annual figure from a single sponsor against her official. WNBA rookie salary, $76,535 for this season. Let that number settle. It is a figure so absurdly low it borders on parody. Her entire 4-year rookie contract, the reward for being the undisputed face of a franchise and the primary engine of an entire league's economic boom, totals just $338,056. For context, that is less than the signing bonus for a mid-round NFL draft pick. It is less than the starting salary for a first-year associate at a major law firm. It would not be enough to cover the cost of a courtside season ticket package at some of the arenas she sells out. This isn't just about one player's salary. It exposes the rot in the entire system. The WNBA's average salary hovers around a meager $102,000, the league's supermax, a designation reserved for the absolute cream of the crop. The league's most decorated veterans caps out at just under $250,000. Clark's Nike deal pays her 14 times more annually than the highest possible salary the league she is revitalizing can offer. It is a financial fiction, a system where the labor that creates the vast majority of the new value is compensated with a tiny fraction of the returns. This fiction becomes even more pronounced when you zoom out to the institutional level. In the past year, the Connecticut Sun franchise was sold for a record-breaking $325 million. The league is currently positioning its next league-wide media rights deal for a valuation north of $2 billion. Private equity firms and new investors are circling, eager to buy into the growth. The league is getting rich. The owners are getting rich. But the system is built to ensure that this new wealth does not trickle down to the players in any meaningful way. It is a classic case of socializing the risk for years. Players were asked to sacrifice for the good of the game, while aggressively privatizing the profits. Now that the boom has arrived, the financial containment is supported by a sophisticated campaign of managed visibility. It is a strategy of subtle suppression, designed to create the illusion that while Clark is important, she is not essential. It's fought in the obscure corners of broadcast logs and scheduling meetings. Consider the schedule. Marquee matchups that any logical programmer would place in a premium weekend slot on a BC are mysteriously shuffled. Take the Fever versus New York Liberty game, a contest between the league's biggest star and its reigning champions, a narrative that writes itself, a natural Sunday afternoon showcase, right? It was scheduled for a Tuesday at 10 p.m. on a secondary cable channel. This is not an accident. It's a strategic devaluation, a way to temper ratings and prevent her numbers from becoming too astronomical. Too undeniable. Then there's the broadcast itself. Watch the replays with a critical eye. An incredible no-look pass happens, a moment of pure genius. But the official highlight package posted on the WNBA social media mysteriously omits it or buries it at the end of the reel. Broadcast logs reportedly show that the average screen time dedicated to Clark's reactions on the bench during close games is significantly lower than for other star players. The camera work is often intentionally team-focused, a visual manifestation of the league's verbal messaging designed to avoid elevating one player above the rest. It is a quiet, persistent effort to edit her out of her own story, one frame at a time. This extends to media access. Seasoned journalists report increasing difficulty in getting straightforward answers from coaches and team executives. Press conferences become exercises in dodging questions. Coaches likely operating under a league-wide directive speak and rehearse platitudes about the whole team stepping up and it being a collective effort. What they can't deny, they dilute. The message from the top down is clear. Control the narrative, flatten the superstar hierarchy, and reassert the primacy of the league brand over the individual player. So we must return to the ultimate question. Why? Why go to such extraordinary lengths to manage a miracle? The answer is the ticking clock that is the collective bargaining agreement. The current CBA expires on October 31st, 2025. The players, empowered for the first time by real quantifiable leverage, have already triggered their opt-out clause. The period between now and then is not peacetime. It is the prelude to war. To understand the stakes, you need to understand one key concept: basketball-related income, or BV. It is the massive pie of money generated by everything from ticket sales and broadcast rights to sponsorships and merchandise. In the NBA, a powerful players' union has fought for decades to secure a 50-50 split of BRI with the owners. It is a true partnership. In the WNBA, that number is estimated to be less than 10%. It is not a partnership. It is a plantation-style economy where the labor force generates the wealth and the ownership class reaps the overwhelming majority of the benefits. Caitlin Clark is the catalyst that threatens to upend this entire model. Before her, owners could argue for the status quo by pleading poverty or pointing to slow growth. They can no longer do that. The players' union can now walk into the negotiation room not with philosophical arguments about fairness, but with a spreadsheet. They can demonstrate, in indisputable dollars and cents, the revenue generated by a single player. She is their Exhibit A, their proof of concept, their nuclear option. Her value makes the argument for a radically fairer BRI split undeniable, and that is why the owners are engaging in this preemptive campaign of containment. A lockout, a situation where owners shut down the league to break the union financially and psychologically, is the ultimate weapon in their arsenal. The current strategy of suppressing her visibility and managing her statistics can be seen as phase one of that plan. By trying to temper her impact now, they hope to argue in 2025 that the Clark effect was a temporary, unsustainable bubble. They need to create data points that suggest the league can survive, even thrive, without her at full throttle. It is a cold, cynical, and calculated strategy to weaken their opposition before the battle has even begun. If this pattern of behavior feels familiar, it's because it is. This is not a new playbook. It is a historical blueprint for how established male-dominated systems react to disruptive female greatness. When a woman doesn't just join the game, but fundamentally changes its rules, the system does not adapt. It attacks. Look at Serena Williams. She brought a level of power, athleticism, and unapologetic ambition that the genteel world of tennis had never seen. The response was not universal celebration, but constant coded scrutiny. They didn't just marvel at her serve. They policed her body, her outfits, her emotional expressions. They subjected her to disproportionate drug testing. The powerful, angry black woman trope was weaponized against her to punish her for displaying the same competitive fire that is celebrated in her male counterparts. Look at Simone Biles. She performed skills so innovative and difficult that she was literally years ahead of her competition. She broke the existing scoring system. A healthy system would have expanded its definition of excellence. Instead, the Gymnastics Federation chose to penalize her for her own genius, artificially depressing the value of her most difficult skills to protect the competitive chances of her less talented rivals. They chose to lower the ceiling rather than acknowledge that she was operating in a poor, different stratosphere. Look at Megan Rapinoe. She used her global platform as a soccer superstar to advocate fiercely for equal pay. The institutional response was not engagement, but a campaign of deflection, delay, and personal attacks. Her patriotism was questioned, her outspokenness framed as a distraction. It was a clear message: perform for us on the field, but do not dare challenge our economic structures off of it. This is the context in which Caitlin Clark's situation must be understood. The resistance she is facing is not just about basketball. It is the latest chapter in a long, ugly history of systems protecting their power and financial structures from a disruptive force who happens to be a woman. It's the same movie with a different actress, the same playbook with an updated font. But there is one crucial element that is different this time. One variable the old systems were not designed to handle: the digital rebellion. The league and its broadcast partners may control the official feed, but they have lost control of the conversation. We are now witnessing two separate dialogues playing out in real time. The first is the official one, sterile, controlled, and full of corporate speak. The second is the real one, happening on Twitter, on Reddit, on TikTok, and it is explosive, chaotic, and fiercely intelligent. Every fan with a smartphone has become an investigative journalist. Every scheduling anomaly is screenshotted and shared. Every suspect highlight edit is recut and reposted with critical commentary. This digital ecosystem operates entirely outside the league's sphere of influence. A 30-second fan-made TikTok analysis of a poorly worded post-game press conference can get more views and have more impact than the entire official broadcast. This is the league's greatest miscalculation. They prepare for a structured fight with a players' union. They will not prepare for an amorphous, decentralized, and relentless fight with their own customers. The fans feel their intelligence has been insulted, and they are using the tools of the digital age to fight back. Pieces are all on the board. A league drunk on new revenue but terrified of its source. A player whose value is undeniable but whose compensation is a fiction. A labor force on the verge of demanding a revolution. A historical pattern of suppressing female excellence. And a mobilized, digital-savvy fan base that refuses to be gaslit. This is no longer a simple sports story. It is a story about money, power, and control. It is a structural reckoning, a collision between a 20th century business model and a 21st century cultural phenomenon. The pressure inside the system is becoming unsustainable. The warning signs are not subtle. They are flashing red. The league thought it could control the narrative, that it could manage the growth on its own terms. But they have discovered a terrifying truth. When you hand the microphone to millions of fans, you cannot demand silence. When you present the world with a miracle, you cannot act like it's optional. The storm is no longer coming. It has made landfall. The question is no longer if the system will break, but what it will look like when the pieces are put back together. This isn't just a season or a contract negotiation. It is a wave, a shift, a demand with legs. And it will not be stopped. If you have ever seen a system try to kill its own miracle, share this. Because this isn't just a mistake. It is a blueprint. And it is time to burn it to the ground.